The Brandon Peters Show may contain explicit language and detailed plot points. For more information on the show, stay tuned to the end of the episode. And now, here's Brandon.
Welcome back to The Space Show. I'm Brandon, and this is my companion, Tony.
Well, hello, young people. Excited for the big season finale here.
Yeah, this series of The Space Show follows the episode-by-episode time-traveling, body-hopping exploits of the first season of Quantum Leap. Today, we will be talking about the 9th and final episode of Season 1. Play it again, Seymour. It's the early 1950s, and Sam has leapt into the body of a New York City private detective, Nick Allen. Apart from the fact that Allen bears a striking resemblance to Humphrey Bogart, Sam feels that he has leaped into a cheap pulp novel, something that proves to be all too accurate when he realizes that he knows the story and is constantly having a sense of deja vu. With his partner murdered, Sam has to not only find the murderer, but launch the career of a prospective writer. This one is directed by Alan Lipstadt, written by Scott Shepard and Donald P. Bellisario, off a story by them and Tom Blomquist. It stars Scott Bakula and Dean Stockwell, with guest star Claudia Christian, Willie Garson, and Paul Linke. Lipstadt, funny enough, did the other similar to this episode, Double Identity.
Yeah.
So,
funny how that works out.
We'll get that guy back. Shepard, who wrote, would do 2 more Quantum Leap episodes. He wrote The Equalizer, Murder, She Wrote, Outer Limits, True Calling, and The Dead Zone. Notably, he produced and did an uncredited draft on that 1997 Justice League of America TV movie.
Cool.
Get him to the conventions now. And also produced 21 episodes of Miami Vice. So
nice.
And Claudia Christian, of course, she is currently on 911, but you know her for her role in Babylon 5 as Susan Ivanova, and has been in just a ton of TV stuff. Like, you see her, you're like, I know her from somewhere, if you're not familiar with Babylon 5.
Right.
Willie Garson.
Yeah.
Which?
I was going to say, which, if you're not familiar with Babylon 5, shame on you. What are you doing? How are you living your life? But yes, just like you were saying, Willie Garson, obviously, this is a great cast overall. So
yeah, Willie Garson, he known Standard Blatch on Sex and the City. He'd later appear in Quantum Leap as Lee Harvey Oswald.
That's right. Yeah, it comes back to us.
He's in a lot of stuff. So we got they're going for it big in this episode. Like, it feels like there's a little more money into this one. A little more, like, I thought this was a really well directed episode. Like, it feels like a noir film, like, genuinely. Like, they use great camera angles that evoke that. It's not hard nostalgic filmmaking. There is some 80s stuff in there, but when they have conversations and stuff, they really get the lighting. Like, it's black and white shy of being like a nice complete tribute. Sets, costumes, really lush, and I was just impressed with how well just made technically this episode was.
Yeah. Well, we've talked throughout the season about a lot of these episodes, kind of each of them having a different kind of cinematic theme. You know, you've got your boxing one, and this one, obviously, they leaned very heavily into the noir theme, to the point where even Sam, you could tell, was mentally getting into it, and giving himself a narration and speaking like trying to speak like an old timey gumshoe and picking up the language and things like that. So yeah, it was very cool to see, for sure.
Yeah, just utterly impressive hour of television. A good one to pick for the finale. Like, any of these stories could have felt like Quantum Leap has such, like, well, what are you gonna do for the finale? I mean, like, every week's different. Like, and this one, I don't think it like ramps up stakes, but it gives it something fun to go out on, not too serious. more genre fun than having the big message or something like that. And they hadn't really delve into the show enough to play with any sort of mythology. Not that Quantum Leap has a heavy mythology. They would go to play with some things later on, but it's just 9 episodes, just too early to sort of mess with that.
Right. Well, this is one of the first times too where they really have to start in terms of the timeline and where Sam leaps to. It was established early on that he could leap within his own timeline, and this is where they kind of have to start answering some of those questions, because this episode takes place in April of 1953, and it was already well established, like we talked about last episode, that Sam's birthday is August 8th, 1953. So this episode technically takes place 4 months before he was born, and I know they do. Right. Yes. That's we kind of wander into maybe Belisario's view on pro-life, pro-choice. We don't need to go down that road today necessarily. But there's been a couple other episodes where he has leaped prior to his actual birth date. One was just a few days before in August, and one he was able to leap back all the way to 1945. But they explained that away, that he was able to leap into Al's timeline. But this is the first time that he leapt prior to his actual birth, and I don't think they really addressed it right out of the gate, which is not a big deal. But obviously, for hardcore sci-fi people who are following it, like us today, it's one of those. It raises a few questions about the technicality of things. So,
but easy way to just brush it all off. It's science fiction.
Absolutely. Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like I said,
pro-life, pro-choice, science fiction.
Yeah, we can understand and explain it, and accept it. But I assume if Belisario or Bakula ever go to a convention, you get that guy in the front row. No, in season 1, episode 9, you clearly have moved outside of your own timeline, which was established. Blah, blah, blah. And it's like,
are
we
you
don't
trying
need
to push a pro-life agenda on us?
Right? Yeah, and then they just go to the Shatner. You just go to the Shatner response of it's TV nerds. Deal with it.
Get a life.
Get a life. Get a life.
One of the greatest sketches of all time. He even did a little documentary called Get a Life, too, about the fans. So
I love it. I love it. I love all things Shatner. Sidebar, he's one of my all-time favorite people. I keep pitching, and I'm eventually going to start writing for sciencefiction.com a column called Living Obituary, where I don't wait until someone dies to emulate them and talk about how awesome they are.
Yeah.
And one of my first entrants is going to be William Shatner, just because he's an amazing character actor, and I love him on Star Trek and Boston Legal and pretty much everything he does. The Priceline commercials, I'll watch him in anything. I don't care.
Right. I always wanted some sort, like, I got it before he passed away, but Adam West and Shatner together would have been great. We did get the animated Batman movie, which they did where Shatner played Two-Face, because I guess he was supposed to play him in the Batman TV series proper, but him freeing up from Star Trek, because those shows ran concurrent with each other, never freed up for him to play Two-Face on the 66 Batman show. So that's why they did this cartoon movie. But those two have such an energy that's misunderstood as like camp or ham. I'm like, they are in full control of what they're like. People don't understand. They're not.
It's a choice.
Like,
yes,
Adam West Batman is a whole level of brilliance that I don't think people ever understand. Like, still don't understand to this day. But it's intentional, folks. Like, he knows what he's doing. So,
right.
And Shatner as well with Star Trek. I know a lot of people are like, oh, like, dude, no, guy's a bit more. Brilliant. Yep. He's very human, but
yes, absolutely. Well, and it's interesting too to watch. I mean, because you can see how they evolve throughout their careers as well. I was just watching my 11-year-old daughter Amelia is kind of on a Twilight Zone kick recently. We watched all the new Twilight Zones on CBS All Access / Paramount Plus, but now she wants to go back and watch some classic Twilight Zones. And of course, we went to watch Nightmare at 20,000 Feet with Something on the Wing, and he was not. I mean, he was he over exaggerates a little bit, but he definitely, his pacing was different. It was very quote unquote normal for before he made some it's an intentional choice that he makes to act that way. And like you said, people don't necessarily see that, but they should.
And he was brilliant on, I mean, as an older man, he was brilliant on Boston Legal for years, where they kept giving him Emmys. Like, I mean, he's great.
That's another one of those pairings, like you said, Shatner and James Spader. And getting 4 or 5 seasons of watching them do that is just oh boy.
And Shatner rubbed off hard on Spader, because when he showed up and the first time he was on The Office when they did the interview episode, I was like, oh, he is playing William Shatner right now.
Yes.
And I was so excited when he got to be on full time, and then I guess it just didn't work out. But man, when he was in that first, I was just like, holy shit! He showed up as William Shatner, did this job.
It's good, and it's so fun. I mean, I'll watch it. He's another one I'll watch in anything. You know, he's excellent in Blacklist. I mean, I loved him as Ultron. I know. Age of Ultron, the Avengers movie, doesn't get a lot of love as probably the weakest of the Avengers movies, but I thought he was phenomenal. I love him in everything he does too.
It's the only one where you can just have a complete adventure too.
That's right. Well, you know, there's a great meme out there online that says that Ultron is actually the greatest, the most relatable Avengers villain because, I mean, dude was alive online for 5 minutes on the internet and decided that humans suck and should be eradicated. I'm like, I feel that.
Yep.
It speaks to me. I'm right there with you. So
Exactly. Oh gosh. So back to here.
Yes.
Master I'll segue with Master Thespians. Sam leaps into a guy who looks like Humphrey Bogart, and and I like how that plays. And the guy does, and it's an interesting addition to the script because they never forget that in this. You could see a lesser writer forgetting it, playing like and the way they evolve it too is great because it starts out as fun for Sam, and then it gets tiresome. Like when he's at the nightclub and they think they're gonna play a song for him in Spotlight, and he's got drinks, and he's like, oh god,
right.
It could have just been once, but it remembers to touch back on that every time. It never saves the day or anything, but it's fun that this guy would get recognized when he goes in public, and they don't stop from doing that.
Right. It was one of those quirky things. And like you said, it never became like a huge, they kept going back to it to the point where you thought like, oh, well, this is going to come in handy in some pivotal plot point, but it never did. And it was one of those very weird things. And this might be one of the episodes where Sam looks in the mirror the least amount of times. Because I think they only did it maybe twice. Where he's, or you know,
did it in prison and at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. But they kept it even all the way through the end, through the end of the episode when he was in the airport and getting recognized as, hey, it's Humphrey, you know, things like that. So, it was a very interesting little sidebar there. So, but I mean, I appreciated it. I was not everything has to be huge to the plot, obviously. So it's okay.
And
so
I could watch Sam misquote Bogart all day. Like that was one of the funniest. Like because Bakula is just like he's like adorable watching him just like have a blast, like quoting and being confident with Cagney lines and stuff, and Al being like, oh man, like no. And,
right, and this is another one of those things where he accidentally / intentionally creates a historical anachronism where he creates the phrase "main squeeze." You know, it's not quite to the level of teaching Michael Jackson the moonwalk accidentally, but it's up there. So,
and I have to wonder if there's some deeper reference, like because is Sam misquotes Bogart all throughout this episode, and the title is based upon a misquote from Casablanca. So I'm wondering if that's hand in hand. That's why they called it "Play It Again, Seymour." Because
the Casablanca thing too. I noticed this originally, and doing some digging deeper about the episode, I was able to realize a few things towards the end when Sam asks Allison, you know, about the airplane. She has the airline tickets, and he says, "Where are they to?" And her response in the episode that you hear is the phrase "does it matter," but that does not sync up with her lips. She clearly said something different.
Okay.
And in doing some research, people actually believe that she said the original reply was actually probably Casablanca, but they probably had to cut it due to some rights restrictions or copyright issues and things like that. So I think Belisario wanted a deeper connection, but had to toe that line. You know, NBC was like, well, we can't afford to make that connection or whatever. So
when I do love like Sam also, in addition to misquoting too, when she goes to leave and he goes chasing after her to leave with her, he's like, "You remember how the movie ends, right?" It's like,
the movie, yes. They have to say it as the movie.
Yeah, Swiss cheese there, Sam. Swiss cheese. because he does not get on the plane when they're in the movie.
Right. Well, and this is one of those episodes where, yeah, for sure, he feels towards the end more than anything, Sam starts to be like, listen, this part's for me, like I've done like whatever history needs me to do. I've probably done it already. Like this is Sam time, So
and it's basically like a lot happens because it's similar to a book he read when he was. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, like because. I did up the top the deja vu, but yeah, so he's got that stuff happening for him too, where he has little things, and someone's also trying to kill him too. That's
right,
something interesting, and I really like I mentioned the money that you get an airport hangar, which those aren't always cheap with actual planes, and
sure.
At least from what we can see, the planes look to scale, and like the nightclub set, it looks huge from what I can see, and it's just really impressive. They're not there a whole long time, but that's impressive. And then the gorgeous looking apartment building set, that is.
Yeah, well, that goes hand in hand with what you said earlier about really wanting to go all in on that noir type of. I mean, that was you had to have those big sets. You can't do a noir type mystery and cheap out on anything really.
Right.
So
yeah, oh yeah, and then they have they have a shootouts in here, and then they also have that part where he falls down the elevator shaft or the cable. And showing things look big too. I mean, they're able to film things with a good sense of scale, and just a really impressive episode.
Yeah. It was great from start to finish, and like we said, you wondered how things were going to feel here, going from the last two episodes really dealing heavy subject matter in terms of big picture issues, societal issues, and then this one comes up and you're like, oh, it's just going to be this is going to be kind of more of a just a relaxer, like sit back and enjoy this classic mystery type of thing. But they didn't phone it in, right?
No, it's
all out, which is cool.
It's top notch popcorn entertainment is what they got here, and because it's got a pretty good mystery and they play it smart where you only know as much as Sam does throughout. Like, I mean, kind of the whodunit kind of pops up out of like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess he was here the whole time for some reason, but maybe it's not like, oh, wow, that was such a great mystery, but it works. It works. The fun of the mystery is finding the clues and putting them together as opposed to what it ends up being. But I mean, it worked for me, and it ended in a nice action bit with fun help from Al.
Yeah. Once again, you've got Al, obviously, relatively. This time, it's not so much Al being the red herring and knowing everything. It's just Al finally stepping in and using his God-given hologram abilities to truly help Sam. You feel like at some point you're kind of watching this episode and you're like, wouldn't Al want to be with Sam every minute that he has? Like his life is literally in danger every second that he's in, out of time.
True.
You would think that Al would want to be with him all the time, but this one he definitely spent more time really actually helping Sam instead of being like, oops, I'm here for some comic relief and bye.
Yes. And I'll tell you what, this is also aged well, because we've seen a lot, and maybe it's because people like you and I, we watch a lot of stuff. So now we're like, okay, how long until they tell us it's Allison doing it?
Right.
How long? Oh, it was someone else. Oh, okay. Like it's at the time where it would have been clever to have Allison be the killer. But since then, so many Allison killers have been done. Like it was, there was a lot done in the noir period too, but
right. Well, and Allison was the easy out for the plot too, because the plot was pushing, Al was pushing in that direction. It would have been easy to be like, you know what? Hey, look, Al was right. It was, obviously. Yeah. But yeah, to be able to go in a different direction gave it that little extra twist at the end. That was still fun.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And speaking of Al's, we had Woody Allen show up as a child in this.
Another one of these weird, they keep shoehorning the history thing, which I get it. You can't do a historical show and not want to kind of, make a little wink to the times. So, I get it. Some of them feel a little more organic than others, let's say. So
he name drops his film Bananas in there. And his mother is very much how his mother was in like Annie Hall. We've seen her portrayed. So that little bit of fun, which kids watching today wouldn't know a fucking thing.
This one you had to know. Yeah. They didn't come right out and be like, "That's Woody Allen." Like you had to know. You have to connect your own dots here, which I do appreciate. Not everything is directly explained to you. So
yeah, definitely. And to end this, he leaps into a woman. We don't get no boy.
Yep.
Just Miss. And so that episode, What Price Gloria, would be the fourth episode of season 2. It was the final episode in the production block of this season, so this was shot during the season 1 episodes, but somewhere in production, minds changed, and Honeymoon Express got moved to the season 2 premiere. That when we come back, get back to Quantum Leap, we'll be talking about that one. Syndication, though, would make a cliffhanger with the Honeymoon Express instead of Gloria at the end.
Yeah. It's interesting as the show ages and as new streaming options pick it up and then moves around to kind of see how history alters things, because just like you said, at one point this show was streaming on a Hulu, and Hulu did list it as part of the first season, but then of course, like you said, so Honeymoon Express obviously was the second season, and Gloria got pushed back. And then when the show was rerunning on like the Sci-Fi Channel and USA, they actually spliced those leap-ins. So they made it look more organic to where they removed the "I leaped into the girl" part, and they put in the one we're going into the Honeymoon Express. So it's very interesting to see how history has allowed this show to kind of rejigger itself a little bit, so
right. It's so, I'm so fascinated with how TV used to work. I love reading about like BBC stuff from back in the day, how their productions went and stuff, and how because here in the US it's easy for us because TV got inspired by film. Over there it got inspired by theater, so it's a whole different different thing. But here, this is an interesting thing. My Blu-ray had Gloria for the cliffhanger of this, so it was as the episode aired is what they
and that's exactly what when I was watching it on the Roku channel, they have Gloria. So
when they mastered for HD, they must have just went with
moved
as aired. I don't remember how my DVD set ended, but I do know like a lot of these in syndication would change the cliffhanger to fit whatever package they were selling. If it was like a lighter episode package or.
Well, and it's interesting too, because you never really would have thought, if this wasn't a season finale, they probably would have left it alone, because if you're leaping, we talked earlier where there was a couple episodes that were shot and premiered out of order, and it wasn't a big deal because it was coming again in a few weeks. But this being a season finale, you didn't want to, when you came back 6 months later or whatever, you didn't want to confuse and be like, wait a minute, this isn't where we left off. It's not a traditional show in the sense that you get this big to be continued in 8 months or whatever thing. So it's a very interesting way of how they do things then versus how we see it now.
And it is a great cliffhanger too for this, because it's like you're like building the whole is he ever going to go into a woman? Is he, or like because that doesn't happen in the season, and you're like, they are going to go for it, but in order to get that, it was good to hold that off for this one. Because I could see either going into the black man or going into a woman being something you'd hold to dangle for the next season, and that they certainly did right there. But you got to wait next season +4 to get to
Yes, you got to wait extra. You really got to want it here. So
which is funny because I could see them doing it as a cliffhanger, and if the episode's not shot, maybe not having the confidence to pull it off till you get a couple in the bag and then do it at 4th. But this was already shot. Like, why not be the first? Like, it's so weird.
Well, so then it also raises the question of if, Donald P. Belisario and the creative team, because they shot What Price Gloria as part of the first season block, did they intend that one to be the finale, the true season finale? But because going back and looking at it, if you go into syndication and you remove it and you've got this great noir story and this is the end of the season, and then they just do the leap into Honeymoon Express, you're like, it's just another leap, right? There's nothing quote unquote significant about this one, as significant as going into a woman.
Right. That's true. Which we will get to that sometime. But let's take a look back at this first season. Do you have any like favorite episodes that come to mind right off the bat?
Gosh, I mean, looking back, it was such a treat to be able to revisit this season, rewatching it in preparation for these discussions, because you forget really how seminal of a show this was and how it came out of the gate with guns ablazing with its big ideas about Sam jumping into different people and tackling different social issues. I would say really just this first season in general was just. It all was my favorite to go back and look at, because you do forget how different and how groundbreaking this show was for its time. I really do think it gets lost in the sands of time a little bit in terms of what it did for TV at the time that it came out. So it was just a pleasure to kind of go back and just go over the entire season from start to finish and kind of relive that fun. So
yeah, and I can't really think of many better first seasons of a show that give you a sample of everything it could be at its top, like its highest form in one little dose, to be like, well, this is what we got. Do you want to stick around? And yeah, I do. Because it's not afraid to go places. It gives you everything, like as if we might not have another season, so let's hit these things rather than, well, we could do this. And, the only thing they don't do is the woman. And we could argue that could have been planned for season 1 to finish off too. But I just, there's ones I'm attached to, but from Quantum Leap, I can easily recall these 9 episodes more than some of the other seasons. Like, this is just a stellar first season of television that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, like you said, they didn't feel the need to ramp up or ease into things, and that might have been, to be honest, that might have been a byproduct of the design of the show. A lot of standard television shows, you've got maybe 1 or 2, 3 main characters, and then you've got a supporting cast of a dozen other characters that you have to get to know and make sure that they're testing well with audiences. And this type of show, you've got Sam and Al, and literally every episode, everyone else changes around them, so you don't have to worry about getting people attached or does this character read well or whatever. You really you just dive in head first, as the show did. And they did in future seasons, they did some more unique things when Sam would jump back into different, he would jump back into his own timeline, and there was an episode where he had multiple personalities, and some of the personalities even that he had jumped into in this first season kind of came back, but yeah, like you said, this season tackled the big questions right out of the gate, and you have to give it absolute credit for that, for just going, they were going to go big or go home, and fortunately they didn't have to go home. They got 4 more seasons out of it, so going big definitely worked for them. It was definitely a big swing and a big hit for them, which is awesome. So.
Right, yeah. And I think one of the, and it's still great, with Genesis might be one of the weaker entries, just because it's forced to have things start off like that's.
I agree. Yeah.
and then they dive right into challenging the mythology in the second episode, which is just crazy good. And then you get ones that evoke movies. You get challenge it's really strong for a season. Technically, like Quantum Leap nerd things, it's not fully formed in terms of its presentation. Mainly the intro stuff,
right?
Because
a little caca.
that doesn't work for me as well. And then they have they recap stuff a lot in this first season. Like, it'll start with a little narration of Sam talking about where he's been and what he did and stuff. And it's unnecessary, because you didn't need to see. For the first season, since anybody new could be tuning in any week, I guess it helps.
Sure. And they were still finding their footing a little bit in terms of what this show was going to be versus the more classic TV kind of setup of the time, where viewers were probably expecting a certain thing when they were tuning in. So you had to give them a little bit of that while also changing those expectations. So but yeah, I thought
but I can't fault it for something it becomes later, because that's not true here where we're at. The intro is just fine. It's just fine. The theme music's great. The intro's awesome. But I like it better later. But I can't fault this, because it's figuring things out. And if it would have stayed like this, I'm sure I'd be just as attached.
Right. Yeah. Overall, I think you have to give a ton of credit to Donald P. Belisario and his writer/creative team, like Deborah Pratt and things like that, because it's clear that they had a ridiculously well-formed idea of what they wanted this narrative to be from episode one, right? Like a lot of shows take their time to find their footing and kind of shift things as they go along. You could tell from the very first episode, they had established the specific plot points, how the show was going to go, and they stuck to it, and it worked extremely well because they were able to flesh out many different types of stories within that narrative. So yeah, you have to give them all the love for the initial success here.
And in terms of all his shows he's made, this is probably the one that you don't have to put nostalgia glasses on to stand up for and enjoy. Like, it really
absolutely
strong, and that's because when you make things period piece, it tends to hold up better than just making it of its era too. So
this is true.
That's definitely what it is. But yeah, we've completed season 1. And so, Tony, thank you for joining me for this adventure and the many more that we will be occurring.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for letting me start with such a cool series. And I'm looking forward to wherever we leap into next.
Wherever we go to. Yes, definitely. So one last time, for now, let people know. Well, that'll do for today. And we think we've made right where other conversations about this season once went wrong. So Tony, once more, let people know where they can leap to find your work.
Sure. So you can always hang out with me at sciencefiction.com, where we talk about all things sci-fi, old, new, and in between. And then me personally, you can come find me at my website, tonyschaab.com, or any of the social medias, the Facebook, the Twitter, etc. It's all / or at Tony Schaab. And I'm happy to chat about anything at any time with anyone, anywhere, any whom, any why, etc., etc., etc.
There's no OnlyFans, only Tony Schaab.
Amen to that.
All right. Now I'm on Twitter and Instagram at Brandon4KUHD. Written work at WhySoBlue.com. There's more from the Brandon Peters Show this week, but from Old Space. This is my old bedroom from when I was a kid. Did I leap into my young self?
Sure did. Ziggy thinks he knows how to get you out of here, though.
Well, Jessica, and you have a Ziggy?
I do. Anyway, in order to get back to Old Space, you're going to have to get through an old teen show.
Okay, weird.
Yeah. You need to watch the entire first season of Fox's 1992 failed show, The Heights. Once you finish, you'll be right where Old Space Show last regenerated.
Okay.
And where you leapt in, you've already missed the first episode.
Oh, boy.
Thank you for listening. The Brandon Peters Show is a Creative Zombie Studios production. Produced by Brad Shoemaker and Brandon Peters. Written and edited by Brandon Peters. Announcer vocals by Jessica Alsman. Theme song by Metavari. Web design and show art by Brad Shoemaker with Brandon Peters. All music and clips featured in the episode are property of their respective studios, and no infringement is intended. Additional information on this and other episodes at BrandonPetersShow.com. For any inquiries, press opportunities, or sponsorship, contact mail at BrandonPetersShow.com. The show is available on Apple Music, Spotify, or anywhere podcasts are found.